The battlefield was quiet now. Too quiet. Metal wrecks floated in the endless dark of space. Broken ships turning slowly like dead whales. Fires burned without sound, only glowing in the black. The stars were cold witnesses, watching the ruins of a great war. He was just one man, a soldier in a torn suit. Drifting among the debris, his helmet was cracked, his oxygen thin, his body heavy with pain. He had fought for hours, maybe days. He could not tell anymore. Time and space was strange. Every minute felt endless, every second heavy. His name did not matter here, he was just another human survivor. But inside his chest, his heart still beat strong, refusing to stop even in the middle of death. His human will burned. That will had carried him this far. Through fear, through blood, through loss. He looked at the stars, blinking through the cracked glass of his visor. They seemed so peaceful, so far away, like they did not care about war. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to remember Earth, blue skies, green fields, laughter, the sound of home. It felt like another life, something impossible to reach again. The silence pressed against him, heavy and strange. He could not hear anything but the soft hiss of broken air filters. Every sound was muted, as if the universe was holding its breath. He did not know that danger was close, closer than he could imagine for a moment. He allowed himself weakness. He let his eyes close, his arms drop, his mind sink into a fragile calm. He thought maybe this was the end. Maybe he could rest now, but humans never truly rest, even when death is near. As his breathing slowed, the wreckage around him shifted. Something moved in the darkness, silent and fast. Shadows passed over the broken ships, a presence watching. But he was unaware. Lost in his brief escape in the black void, she was waiting, her body hidden, her eyes glowing faintly like two burning coals. She had been hunting, stalking through the ruins like a predator. Her armor was dark, shaped for war, sharp and deadly. Every movement was precise, every step filled with purpose. She had seen him from the distance. A weak human floating. To her, humans were strange, fragile yet stubborn. Most aliens saw them as soft creatures, easy to break, but she had fought them before, and she knew the truth. Humans were dangerous because they refused to give up. Even when beaten, even when broken, they fought on. She studied him in silence, her claws ready, her weapon glowing faint. One strike would end him quick and clean, but she waited. She wanted to see him wake. Something inside her was curious, almost amused. Why did this one survive when so many had fallen? The silence grew heavier, almost alive. The man drifted, unaware that death was inches away. If he had opened his eyes, he might have seen her shadow. If he had listened closely, he might have felt the faint hum of her blade. But he was blind to it all, lost in memory inside his helmet. A single tear slipped down his cheek. He remembered a promise made long ago to someone he loved. He had said, "I will come back," and now, that promise burned inside him, refusing to die. Slowly, his fingers tightened on the broken handle of his weapon. He did not know why, but his body reacted. Some instinct told him that the silence was not safe. Some hidden sense whispered that something was near. His eyes opened, sharp and tired, and in that instant the calm shattered, because she was already on him. Her armored body slammed against his, fast as lightning. Her blade pressed against his throat, glowing red. Her face was close, alien and fierce, her eyes burning with power. He had no time to think, no time to move. 1 second of blindness had brought him face to face with death. The silence before the storm was gone. The storm had arrived, and it wore the face of an alien warrior. His breath caught in his chest. The alien warrior was on him before he could even think. Her weight pressed against his suit, her blade humming softly against the thin glass of his cracked helmet. Her eyes glowed, sharp and unblinking like twin fires in the darkness. She did not move fast now. She did not need to. One flick of her wrist and his life would end. But she did not strike, not yet. Instead, she leaned close, her face only inches away. Her breathing was calm, steady, like a predator that knew the prey could not escape. The man froze, his hand still hovering near the broken weapon at his side. He knew one wrong move could mean death, but his human mind worked fast, searching for an answer, searching for survival. He tried to look into her eyes, to find something there, something beyond the cold. But her gaze was unreadable, a storm hidden behind glass. Her voice came at last, low and rough. It was not the sound of mercy, but of curiosity. "Human," she said. Her words slow, her accent strange. "Why still alive?" The words cut deeper than her blade. He did not know how to answer, not with his throat so close to fire. But he understood something then. She was not just a killer, she was studying him. Her question was not one of pity but of wonder, as if she could not believe he was still breathing. He swallowed hard, his lips dry. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Because I refuse to die, for the first time." The warrior's eyes shifted, not wide, not soft, but a flicker, a tiny spark of interest, her head tilted, her blade pressing harder, but not enough to break the glass. She was testing him, weighing his words. The silence between them was more dangerous than the battle itself. He tried to hold her gaze, though his body screamed with fear. He remembered the faces of his squad, the last screams in his calm, the explosion that had scattered them like dust. He was the only one left, and now this alien stood before him, deciding if he deserved to exist another moment. Her armor gleamed faintly under the starlight, black metal marked with scars of countless battles. Symbols etched across her chestplate glowed faint blue, signs of a warrior culture unknown to him. She was not just a soldier. She was something higher, something chosen. Her every movement told him she was bred for war, and yet she hesitated. Her clawed fingers flexed on the hilt of her weapon. She could kill him in less than a breath, but instead, she leaned closer, close enough that he could see the faint pulse of veins glowing under her skin. Her voice came again, sharper now. "You fight alone," she said. "No army, no ship, no leader?" Her eyes narrowed. "You are broken." The words should have crushed him, but they did not. Instead, they lit something deep inside. He smiled, weak but defiant. "Maybe," he whispered, "but I am still human." Her blade trembled just slightly. That single word seemed to mean more than 1,000. She stared at him, searching, as if trying to understand what human truly meant. And for a moment, the silence between them was filled not with fear, but with something else, something neither could name. Then the wreckage around them groaned. A sharp echo, like metal tearing, reached them from the shadows. The warrior's head snapped up, her blade shifting, her body tensing. Her eyes darted to the dark beyond, and for the first time, the human saw it. A shadow moving, larger than her, heavier, slower. But filled with menace, the presence was not hers. It was something else, something worse. The man felt his heart hammer in his chest. If she was a predator, then this new thing was a monster. She hissed under her breath, a sound not meant for him. Her blade flickered, her grip tightening. For the first time since she had appeared, her focus left him. Her eyes locked on the shadow, her body crouching low. The hunter had become wary. The man realized then that she was not his only danger. There were more threats in the dark, hidden in the silence of the ruined battlefield. And somehow she knew it too. Her voice dropped to a whisper, not for him but for herself. "Not alone." The tension cracked like glass. The blade at his throat wavered, not out of weakness but out of choice. She looked at him one last time, as if deciding something. Then she pulled the weapon back, slow and deliberate. Her eyes burned with a new command. "Stay alive, human," she said. "You will fight." And before he could reply, the shadow in the wreckage began to move closer. The sudden presence was no longer just hers. Something worse was coming, and they both knew it. The shadow grew larger in the silence. Broken metal floated aside as something massive pushed through the wreckage. The alien warrior stood tense, her blade humming low. The human soldier could see it now. A beast of metal and flesh. A war machine that had survived the battle. Its body was twisted with wires, claws made of steel, and eyes glowing red like burning coal. It moved with a heavy sound, even in the weightless dark of space. Every step made the broken ships tremble. Every breath hissed with smoke and acid. It was a monster left behind by war, hungry for anything still alive. The warrior shifted her stance, her armor shining faint in the starlight. She looked ready but also wary. This was not prey to her, this was a rival. And the human, still weak, was caught in between. He tightened his grip on the broken weapon at his side. He knew it was useless, just a shard of metal from a fallen gun. But his human instinct told him not to stand empty-handed. If death was coming, he would face it armed. The beast roared, a sound that vibrated through the wreckage. Its jaws opened wide, showing rows of sharp, glowing teeth. It did not care who was enemy or friend, it only wanted blood. The alien warrior glanced at the human. Her eyes were sharp, questioning, as if deciding his worth in that moment. She growled, then tossed something toward him. A small weapon, dented but still alive with energy. It spun through the air and landed in his hand. He stared at it, confused. Why would she arm him? when only seconds ago her blade was at his throat. Her voice came deep and commanding. Fight, human. The word struck him harder than any blade. Not a request, not a chance, but a command. She had chosen him in this instant, not as prey, but as something else. His heart raced, his mind screamed, but his body obeyed. He raised the weapon, feeling its hum through his gloves. It was heavy, built for her kind, but he held it steady. His human hands had always adapted, always found a way. The beast lunged, massive claws slicing through the silence. The warrior leapt aside with perfect speed, her blade slashing across its armor. Sparks flew, but the monster did not slow. Its other claw swung toward the human. He ducked, his body twisting in the weightless dark. The claw tore through the wreckage behind him, sending shards of metal flying. He raised the alien weapon and fired. A burst of blue light struck the beast's side. Burning into its flesh-metal skin, it roared again, this time in pain. The human felt the shock in his chest. He had heard it, even if only a little. For the first time, the battle felt possible. The warrior's voice cut through the chaos. Again, she ordered. Her blade carved across the monster's leg, slowing it. The human fired once more, aiming where she had struck. Together, the wound grew deeper. The monster thrashed, rage shaking the ruins around them. Shards of broken ships spun away like deadly knives. The warrior moved like lightning. Each strike precise, the human followed her rhythm. His shots not perfect, but brave. Step by step, they fought as one, but the beast was not finished. It slammed its tail, a spiked whip of metal, catching the warrior across her armor. She was thrown back, her body crashing against the wreckage. Her blade slipped from her hand, spinning away into the dark. The human's eyes widened for a moment. The predator looked vulnerable. She struggled to rise, her breathing rough. The monster turned toward her, ready to end her life. Something inside the human burned. He could run, he could hide, but that was not who he was. He remembered her words, her command, fight, human, and for the first time, it was not her order that moved him. It was his own choice. With a roar of his own, he launched forward. He fired again and again, blue light burning into the beast's neck. The monster snarled and swung toward him, claws slicing close, almost tearing his suit. But he did not stop. He refused to stop. The warrior watched him through blurred vision. Her lips parted in surprise. She had seen humans fight before, reckless and wild, but this one was different. There was no army behind him, no leader, no promise of survival, and yet he stood fearless against death. The beast staggered, its roars growing weaker. The human's final shot pierced its head. The glow in its eyes flickered, then went out. The massive body drifted lifeless in the void. The silence returned, heavy and final. The human floated, chest heaving. Weapon shaking in his grip, he had survived again. The warrior pulled herself up. Her armor cracked. Her eyes locked on him. For a long moment, they only stared at each other. Predator and prey, soldier and survivor. Something unspoken passed between them. Finally, she moved closer. Her voice low but strong. "You fight," she said. Not weak. Her hand reached for her fallen blade. But she did not raise it against him. Instead, she stood beside him, her eyes sharp with a new kind of respect. The challenge had been faced and both had survived together. The silence after the battle felt heavier than the fight itself. The dead beast drifted, its huge body turning slowly in the weightless dark. Sparks glowed faintly from its torn metal flesh, fading into cold embers. The wreckage was quiet once more, but the air between the human and the warrior was not. The human floated with the weapon still tight in his grip. His chest rose and fell in uneven breaths, his arms trembling from the effort. He had survived, but his body felt like it was made of stone. His mind screamed for rest, but his spirit refused to bend. The alien warrior stood a short distance away. Her armor was cracked, her movements slower, but her eyes remained sharp. She looked at him not as prey now, not even as an enemy. There was something else in her stare, something he could not name. For a long moment, neither spoke. The battlefield was filled only with the drifting debris and the fading glow of dying fires. It was strange, the human thought, that he could feel more tension in the silence than in the fight. But he knew the truth. Her silence was not emptiness. It was a decision being made. Finally, she broke it. Her voice was low, rough, but no longer filled with the same killing edge. "You fought," she said, as if the words surprised her. Her head tilted slightly, eyes narrowing as she studied him. "You saved me," the human swallowed. His throat dry, he wanted to answer, but the words stuck in his chest. It had not felt like saving at the time, only survival. But now, hearing it from her, it felt like more. He shook his head weakly, his voice barely steady. I did what I had to do. Her gaze sharpened. Her blade still glowing faint in her hand. But she did not lift it, she did not strike. Instead, she stepped closer, slow and deliberate. The human stiffened, his hand tightening on the weapon. But she stopped just out of reach, her eyes locked with his. You are different, she said. Her tone was not kind, not soft, but it carried weight. As if she was admitting something she had never said before. He frowned, confusion mixing with fear. Different? He asked, his voice rough. Her answer came fast, sharp. Other humans. They die, they beg, they break. Her eyes narrowed. You fight even when broken. The words sank into him. He felt both pride and sorrow. Pride that she had seen his strength. Sorrow that so many others had fallen. But deep inside he knew what she meant. It was not the weapon, not the armor, not even the training. It was the human spirit, the refusal to end. The warrior's blade dimmed as she deactivated it. For the first time she stood before him unarmed. Her armor cracked, her breath heavy, yet her presence remained powerful. She looked at him not as prey but as something closer to equal. The shift was subtle but undeniable. He felt it in the way she no longer pressed her weapon to his throat. He felt it in the way her voice no longer dripped with contempt. It was not friendship, not trust, not yet. But it was the first step. Suddenly the wreckage groaned again. A burst of light flickered in the distance. A reminder that the battlefield was not empty. Other dangers might be lurking, hidden in the silence. They both turned. Their bodies tense once more, but this time, they did not look at each other as enemies. They looked side by side outward toward the unknown. The human spoke, his voice steady now. If more of those things come, we won't last alone. The warrior's jaw tightened, her eyes narrowing as if she hated the truth in his words. Yet she gave a small nod. Almost reluctant? Together, she said. The word heavy on her tongue, the human almost smiled. Though he forced it back. Together, it was such a strange word to hear from her. An alien warrior who had nearly killed him minutes before. Yet now here they stood, bound by survival. And something deeper began to stir. She turned her gaze back to him, sharp once more. Do not mistake this, she said. Her voice firm. This is no bond, this is no peace. This is survival. Her words were cold, but her eyes betrayed something else. Something she was not ready to admit, even to herself. The human nodded slowly. Survival, he repeated. But in his chest he felt something warmer. Something that told him this was more than survival. This was the beginning of a bond. Whether she wanted it or not, the silence stretched again. But it was no longer the silence of death, it was the silence of change, of two enemies no longer certain of what they were. The unexpected shift had come, and it was only the start. The silence of the battlefield did not last. The dead beast floated aimlessly. But its fall had awakened something else in the ruins. The human felt it first, a low vibration through the wreckage. Like the heartbeat of the void itself, his eyes scanned the dark. His grip tightening on the alien weapon. The warrior felt it too, her stance sharp. Her head tilting as if listening. Her armor was broken, her body still bruised. But her instincts were flawless, she whispered almost to herself. Not over. The human's chest tightened. He knew she was right. The wreckage shifted, shadows moving where no light reached. From the broken husks of ships came faint glows, small red lights blinking. They were not stars, not fire, but eyes. More machines, more beasts crawling from the darkness. The human's breath grew shallow. The one monster they had killed was not the only one. It had been a scout, a hunter sent ahead. The true danger was still coming. The warrior lifted her blade once more. Her voice steady, commanding. Stay close, she said, her eyes never leaving the dark. It was strange, he thought, how her words no longer carried the tone of an enemy. Now they sounded like orders given to an ally. They moved through the wreckage slowly. Metal fragments floated past them, glowing faintly from broken fires. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It was sharp, ready to break at any second. Every movement of shadow felt like claws reaching out. The human glanced at her. Her figure was tall, armored, glowing faint at the edges. She looked unstoppable, yet he had seen her bleed. He realized then that she was not a god. Not untouchable, she was mortal like him, though far stronger. And now, for survival, she had chosen to walk beside him. The red glows multiplied. Dozens of eyes now moved in the dark. The human's heart hammered in his chest. His mind screamed that they could not win this fight. But his body stood firm, refusing to show weakness. The first of the new machines crawled into sight. Its body was smaller than the last, but faster, sharper. It clung to the wreckage like a spider, claws scraping across the metal. Behind it came another and another. Soon the shadows were alive with crawling death. The warrior raised her blade high, its glow cutting through the dark. Her voice was low but steady. "They come." The human lifted his weapon. Hands shaking but eyes sharp, he felt fear. But he also felt something else, readiness. The first machine lunged. The warrior struck, her blade slicing clean through its body. Sparks scattered into the void, the broken shell floating lifeless, but more followed faster, crawling over each other like a swarm. The human fired, blue light cutting through the dark. One fell, then another, but the swarm kept coming. Every shot drained the weapon's power. Every strike burned his muscles. Still, he fought side by side with her. The swarm was endless. They struck from above. From below, from every shadow, the warrior moved like lightning, her blade carving arcs of fire. The human matched her pace as best he could. His weapon flashing again and again, it was chaos, pure and consuming. But then the wreckage shuddered again. Louder, heavier, from the far side of the battlefield. Something vast began to rise. It was larger than the beast they had killed, larger than the swarm combined. A war machine built like a fortress, its body covered in jagged armor. Dozens of red eyes glowed across its frame, each one locking onto them. The human's breath caught in his chest. "How do we fight that?" he whispered. The warrior did not answer, her jaw tightening, her eyes burning with focus. She knew as well as he did. The answer was not clear. The swarm circled them, cutting off escape. The massive machine moved closer, each step shaking the ruins. The human's weapon hummed weakly, its power almost gone. The warrior's armor sparked where it was cracked. Her strength not endless, yet neither of them lowered their stance. For a moment they locked eyes. In her gaze he saw fire, determination, and something else, a silent promise. In his she saw the same. Neither would back down, not here, not now. The hidden enemy had revealed itself. But in the heart of fear, a strange truth burned brighter. They were no longer enemies standing against each other. They were two warriors standing against the dark. The silence before the storm was gone forever. The storm itself had arrived. And it was bigger than anything either of them had faced. And yet, side by side, they prepared to meet it. The swarm closed in from every side. The massive war machine loomed behind them, glowing red like a fortress of fire. The human tightened his grip on the fading weapon, his chest rising fast with every breath. The alien warrior stood tall, her blade alive with light, her eyes burning with a fire of their own. For one long second, it felt hopeless. No ship, no army, no chance of escape. Only two figures standing alone in a field of death. And yet something unspoken passed between them. A decision, sharp and sudden. The warrior turned her head, meeting his gaze. Her voice came rough but steady. "Fight with me." Not a request, not an order, but a truth. The human nodded, his voice raw. "Together." The swarm struck first. Dozens of spider-like machines leaping at them from the wreckage. The warrior's blade cut arcs of fire through the dark. Each strike perfect, clean, deadly. The human fired, his weapon blasting blue light, tearing holes in the swarm. They moved in rhythm, her blade and his fire weaving together, but the swarm was endless. Every machine they killed was replaced by two more. The human's weapon sparked weakly, its power draining fast. Sweat trickled down his face. His arms heavy still, he did not stop. He refused to stop. The massive war machine began to move closer. Each step shook the wreckage. Its body bristled with weapons, claws like towers, eyes glowing like molten stone. It opened its jaws and unleashed a roar that rattled their bones. The swarm pulled back as if bowing to its master. The true fight had only begun. The warrior snarled, gripping her blade tighter. She spoke fast, her words sharp. "You strike when I strike." Her eyes burned with command, but also trust. The human nodded, no hesitation. "Tell me where." She pointed toward the beast's chest, where faint blue energy pulsed beneath the armor. "Heart," she growled, "one word enough." They both knew what it meant. The war machine charged. Claws tearing through the wreckage, the human barely dodged, the strike sending a wave of debris spinning into the void. The warrior leapt onto its arm, her blade carving deep lines of light. The beast howled, shaking her like dust, but she held on. Her strength unbreakable now, she shouted. The human raised his weapon and fired at the glowing chest. Blue light slammed into the armor, cracking it slightly, but not enough. The beast roared again, swinging its massive arm toward him. The human was thrown into the wreckage, his body slamming against broken steel. Pain screamed through him, but he pushed himself up. He would not stop. The warrior landed beside him, her armor dented, sparks flashing across her chest plate. For the first time, he saw strain in her eyes. She was not invincible, not unstoppable. She was fighting with everything she had, just as he was. Her voice came low, almost a growl. "Your kind," she said, "always weaker, always smaller." She lifted her blade, her eyes burning. "But never surrender." Her words struck him harder than the fight itself. It was not an insult, it was respect, raw and fierce. The beast roared again, charging straight at them. Together they moved, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as one. She leapt high, her blade carving across its face, sparks flying. He rolled low, firing at the exposed wound. The glow in its chest pulsed harder, brighter. They were hurting it. Slowly, painfully, but it was working. The war machine thrashed, smashing the wreckage apart. Ships crumbled like paper, fire scattering into the void. But the human and the warrior did not stop, step by step, strike by strike. They cut deeper, her strength and speed, his stubbornness and aim. Together they carved a path through the impossible. At last the beast staggered, its massive frame leaning to one side. Its chest glowed bright, cracks spreading like veins of fire. The warrior landed beside the human, both of them breathing hard. She raised her blade, eyes locked on his. "One more," she said. He nodded, raising the weapon with shaking hands. "One more," the war machine roared, its claws rising for a final strike, but they moved first. Her blade and his fire struck together. The chest shattered, light exploding outward. The beast let out one last scream before collapsing into silence. Its body drifted lifeless, just like the first. The battlefield grew quiet again. Only two figures remained standing in the wreckage. Bloodied, broken, but alive, the human lowered his weapon, his arms trembling. The warrior stood tall, her blade dimming at last. Their eyes met, and in that silence the truth was clear. This was no longer chance, no longer accident. This was alliance, reluctant, fragile, but real. Two enemies had fought side by side, and together they had survived. The battlefield was still, but the silence was not peace. The wreckage floated endlessly, the bodies of machines drifting like broken stars. The human stood with his weapon low, his arms shaking, his breath heavy. Beside him, the alien warrior held her blade, its glow faint but steady. They had won for now. But both knew it was not over. The fight had drained them, their armor cracked, their strength almost gone, and yet something stronger than exhaustion burned in their eyes. A fire that came not from victory, but from survival. The warrior looked at him, her face unreadable. She had seen humans before, but never like this one. He fought not because he was strongest, not because he had the best weapon. He fought because he refused to stop, even when his body was breaking. His spirit did not yield. She tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. Her people had always said humans were weak, fragile, creatures of chance. But here was proof that they were wrong. This one had stood against death itself, and in that, he had shown something her kind could not understand. The silence broke with a sharp sound, metal scraping, claws moving through the wreckage. Another machine had survived, smaller but faster. Its eyes glowed red as it stalked toward them. The human lifted his weapon, but it sparked almost dead. He cursed under his breath, his strength failing him. The warrior stepped forward, blade raised, but before she could strike, the machine leapt, its claws slammed into her, dragging her against broken steel. Her armor cracked further, sparks flashing as she hit the wreckage hard. Her blade slipped from her grip, spinning into the void. The human's heart froze. For the first time he saw her vulnerable. The predator who had nearly killed him was now trapped, her body pinned. The machine's jaws opened, glowing red, ready to tear her apart. Without thinking, he moved. His body screamed in pain, his lungs burned. But his heart roared louder. He ran across the wreckage, grabbing the shard of broken steel at his side. He leapt onto the machine, slamming the blade deep into its neck. Sparks exploded, the monster screeched, but it was not dead. Not yet. The machine twisted, its claws swinging, nearly tearing through his suit. The human held on, stabbing again and again, each strike weaker than the last. His blood mixed with the sparks, floating in the void like crimson stars. But he did not let go, he would not let go. The warrior's eyes widened as she watched, her body pinned, her strength failing. Yet here was the human, broken and bleeding, choosing to fight for her, not for glory, not for survival alone, but for her. Something inside her shifted, something she could not name. With one final strike, the human drove the shard deep. The machine's eyes flickered, then died. Its body went still, floating lifeless in the dark. The human fell back, his chest heaving, blood trickling down his arm. The warrior pushed the wreckage aside. Dragging herself free, she staggered to her feet. Her eyes locked on him. He had saved her. Not once, but twice. Her breath came slow, her voice low. "Why?" she asked. The human coughed, his voice weak but steady. "Because I'm human." The words struck her like a blade. Simple, yet filled with something powerful. Her people did not fight for others. They fought for victory, for honor. But this human had risked everything, not for himself, but for her, and that, she realized, was something far greater. She stepped closer, her shadow falling over him. Her eyes burned with a new light. Not just fire, but respect. "You are foolish," she said softly. But her tone carried no contempt. It carried something else, something almost like wonder. The human forced a weak smile. "Maybe," he whispered. "But that's what makes us strong." She stared at him, silent, her chest rose and fell. Her blade humming faint once more, but she did not raise it. She did not threaten. Instead, she stood beside him, tall and unbroken. For the first time, she saw the truth. Humans were not strong because of weapons, not because of armor. They were strong because of their heart, their will, their refusal to abandon. That was humanity's edge. And she, a warrior of another world, had witnessed it with her own eyes. The wreckage drifted around them, silent and cold. But inside that silence, something new had been born. A bond fragile but unshakable. The human had risked his life for her, and in that choice he had changed everything. The storm was not over. Greater dangers still waited in the dark. But in that moment, they were no longer just survivors. They were something greater. Two warriors bound by fire, one alien, one human, and together they were unstoppable.